Hi, I'm Hillsborough County Commissioner Sandy Merman. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you how important it is to take time to prepare and make a plan for hurricane season.
I'm Tim Dudley, your emergency manager. We've learned many valuable lessons over the years and want everyone to be as prepared as possible this storm season.
In these uncertain times, it's more important than ever to have a plan and be prepared. COVID-19 has shown us that coming together as a community and being resilient is key.
Our team is working hard to keep Hillsborough County ready for any disaster and to provide our residents with resources in case of a hurricane.
To make sure you're ready this year, the first thing you need to do is to sign up for HCFL Alert. You'll receive current emergency information by phone or email.
Next, make a plan with your loved ones. Knowing your evacuation zone and evacuation route is crucial. If you have to evacuate, consider reaching out to friends and families that live outside the evacuation zone to see if they can host you.
If staying with friends or family isn't an option, you can always consider hotels or motels outside of the evacuation zones.
That's right. Hillsborough County emergency shelters are lifeboats, not cruise ships. They should be considered a last resort to keep your family safe.
If Hillsborough County emergency shelters are your only option to evacuate, come prepared. You'll need some additional items this year, including face masks, gloves, hand sanitizers, and other personal items.
At Hillsborough County emergency shelters, you should be prepared to practice social distancing and come with your emergency kit and the items your family needs. Remember, shelters are not a resort. Their last resort. They won't offer any amenities and resources may be limited.
During storm season, you should also keep your gas tank full and keep your emergency kit close at hand.
Make sure to check supplies in that kit, including medication, radio, flashlights, and batteries.
And as we mentioned, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, please include face masks or coverings, hand sanitizers, and gloves.
I want to echo what Commissioner Merman just said. These additions are essential for your health and that of others, especially if you need to go to a county shelter.
In addition, do not forget to pre-register loved ones who require special needs accommodations. Hillsborough has programs in place to help those individuals prepare and find safe shelter.
And don't forget about our furry friends. You'll need food, a pet carrier, proof of current vaccination, and your animal's county registration tag.
Have a plan, know your
plan.
For more information, please visit hcflgov.net/stay safe. Thank you.
Hillsborough County, along with local and federal health experts, are encouraging residents to wear cloth face masks to cover their nose and mouth when in public to help stop the spread of COVID-19. There are not enough surgical face masks for everyone, and available ones should go to healthcare workers and first responders. It's easy to make your own face mask out of common household items. The CDC and U.S. Surgeon General say you can use an old scarf, bandana, or make one using a t-shirt plus 2 rubber bands. Cut part of the t-shirt into a square, fold it from the bottom to the middle, then from the middle to the top. Repeat those steps one more time, then add a rubber band to each side. Bring each end to the middle, then secure around your face. They should fit snugly but comfortably. Cloth face coverings should not be placed on children younger than 2 years of age or people who have trouble breathing. The CDC emphasizes that while wearing a face mask, you should still practice social distancing, stay 6 feet apart from others, and continue other preventative measures such as frequent hand washing. We encourage you to visit hcflgov.net/stay safe for up-to-date information.
Is your local business or organization looking to give back to the community? Help keep our roads clean by joining the Adopt a Road program administered by Keep Tampa Bay Beautiful. Keeping our roads clean is a great way for team building as well as exposure for your business. Select the road your business wants to adopt and dispatch a team to remove litter and debris. Participants will receive 2 signs showing their organization's name as well as safety equipment and instructions for cleaning roads. You can help keep Tampa Bay beautiful by adopting your own road today. To learn more, visit hcflgov.net/cleanhc.
Hello, I'm WWE superstar Titus O'Neil, and today I'm coming to you as a neighbor. You owe it to yourself and those you love to get tested now. Get the care you need and protect your family. Hillsborough County is offering free coronavirus testing and no health insurance is needed. It costs you nothing to get tested. Visit hcflgov.net/staysafe for more information and have a reservation made today. Share this with a neighbor, and let's come together as a community and keep fighting to get through this. Together, we will come back stronger. God bless.
So let's say that Tim here was returning to his vehicle only to find it missing. He may think it was either stolen or towed. Let's not worry too much, Tim. Hillsborough County wants you to know the rules and regulations should you find yourself stuck in this unfortunate situation. Here are a few rules and tips you should know. Rule number 1, permission to tow. Towing services need permission to tow from private property and must post signs with telephone numbers saying that the trespassing vehicles will be removed. If your vehicle is missing, look for a sign and call the number. Rule number 2, communication. As soon as your vehicle is delivered to the local towing facility, towing services must notify local law enforcement within a 30-minute time frame, and they must return calls from vehicle owners within 1 hour. Helpful tip number 1. Law enforcement can help motorists determine if their vehicle has been towed. If you don't see a posted sign, call the authorities on the non-emergency line. Rule number 3. Retrieving your vehicle during a tow. Most people are unaware that you can still retrieve your vehicle while connected to the tow truck. For a drop fee of no more than half the towing rate, the tow truck operator must release the vehicle to its owner. When it comes to payment, tow truck drivers must accept the following: debit, cash, cashier's check, or money order. Rule number 4, personal property. If the owner is unable to pay the drop fee and their vehicle is in the hands of the towing company, owners still have the right to retrieve personal property from their vehicle. Helpful tip number 2. Having a registration and title in your name will make it easier to recover your vehicle. Tow companies will not hand over the vehicle if you are not the registered owner, unless you have an original notarized affidavit signed by the registered vehicle owner. Remember, Hillsborough County is here to help you. For complete, detailed information on towing rules and regulations, please visit us at hcflgov.net/consumer protection or give us a call at 813-635-8316.
Hillsborough County has opened a majority of its conservation parks, trails, and nature preserves to give residents additional options for recreation and exercise. While parks can provide an escape and excitement, county leaders are urging residents to take precautions to protect themselves. To help stop the spread of COVID-19 while in public places, use common sense. Stay home and avoid parks if you're feeling sick. Practice social distancing. Avoid groups or gatherings larger than 10 and stay at least 6 feet from others while exercising. In addition to social distancing, Hillsborough County leaders continue to urge residents to wear cloth face coverings when in community settings. Bring your own water. Though parks are opening, many amenities will remain closed. Prepare for your visit by packing necessary items like hand sanitizer, and it's a good idea to bring your own disinfectant wipes to wipe down any public surfaces before touching or when touching public equipment. But remember, don't flush them after using. Residents who do not abide by the social distancing requirements or listen to instructions from county staff while enjoying the parks will be asked to leave the property. We encourage you to visit hcflgov.net/stay-safe for up-to-date information. Hillsborough County has teamed up with the Department of Health and other public health and safety agencies to address any impacts the virus may have on our local community. To help prevent the spread of the coronavirus, here are a few tips you should know. Practice proper hand washing by using soap and water and wash for at least 20 seconds. Use alcohol-based hand sanitizer if you cannot wash. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Cough and sneeze into a tissue and throw it away. Clean, high-touch surfaces frequently. Some examples include doorknobs, credit and debit cards, cell phones, keyboard and mouse devices, and toilet handles. Stay home if you're feeling ill. If you have any flu-like symptoms, avoid contact with the public. Avoid sharing personal items in spaces with those close to you. Seek medical care early if you're feeling sick. Symptoms of the coronavirus can include fever, coughing, and shortness of breath. Seek medical care if you develop these symptoms or if you've been traveling or have been in close contact with a person who has traveled from an area with an ongoing spread of COVID-19. We encourage you to visit hcflgov.net/stay-safe for up-to-date information and tips.
This is a battle we've never faced in my lifetime. I want to tell you about 416 of the most amazing people. Every day I get to see their skill, professionalism, and dedication. Their commitment to protect and improve the health of everyone in Hillsborough County. The last 2 months, they've been on the front line of a battle with a very dangerous enemy, COVID-19. And they've risen to the challenge in the most amazing, heroic way. Everyone has contributed, sacrificing their personal life, which they put on hold. They're making a difference for everyone they help, and every day I get stopped and told just how amazing they are. I'm proud and blessed to work with them, my second family.
Hi, I'm Hillsborough County Commissioner Sandy Merman. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you how important it is to take time to prepare and make a plan for hurricane season.
I'm Tim Dudley, your emergency manager. We've learned many valuable lessons over the years and want everyone to be as prepared as possible this storm season.
In these uncertain times, it's more important than ever to have a plan and be prepared. COVID-19 has shown us that coming together as a community and being resilient is key.
Our team is working hard to keep Hillsborough County ready for any disaster and to provide our residents with resources in case of a hurricane.
To make sure you're ready this year, the first thing you need to do is to sign up for HCFL Alert. You'll receive current emergency information by phone or email.
Next, make a plan with your loved ones. Knowing your evacuation zone and evacuation route is crucial. If you have to evacuate, consider reaching out to friends and families that live outside the evacuation zone to see if they can host you.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. I want to welcome you to the August 18th, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. My name is Susan Finch, and I'll be presiding tonight over the cases. Let me start by introducing Mr. Brian Grady of the Development Services Center Department, to my left, who will go over tonight's changes to the agenda. Mr. Grady.
Good evening again, Brian Grady, Hillsborough County Development Services. We have one house cleaning item regarding the agenda regarding the oral argument date. The original agenda filed had the wrong oral argument filing deadline. The correct oral argument filing deadline to be filed with the clerk will be the close of business on September 21st, 2020. The original agenda showed that as September 18th, 2020. Again, the oral argument filing with the clerk with the BOCC at 419 Kerr Street, room 140 will be no later than the close of business on September 21st, 2020. I will go, there are no other changes to the agenda. I'll go through the published withdrawals and continuances beginning on page 4 of the agenda. Item A1.
Okay, we're going to take a brief recess. We'll get back to you in just a minute.
Change on tonight's agenda. Again, agenda item A1, rezoning standard 20-0144. This application out of order to be heard and is being continued to September 14th, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A2, rezoning standard 20-0154. This application is being continued by the applicant to the September 14th, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A3, major mod application 20-0290. This application out of order to be heard has been continued to the September 29, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A4, rezoning standard 20-0358. This application out of order to be heard has been continued to the September 15, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A5, rezoning standard 20-0374. This application has been continued by staff to the October 19, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A6, rezoning plan development 20-0447. This application is continued by the applicant to the September 15, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. And item A7, rezoning PD 20-0690. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the September 29th, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. That concludes all withdrawals and continuances.
All right, thank you so much. Let me start by going over our procedures this evening. Tonight's agenda consists of items that require a public hearing be held before a zoning hearing master prior to the final decision, which is made by the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. I'll conduct the hearing tonight as the hearing master and will make a recommendation on each application within 15 business days following tonight's hearing. Those recommendations are then sent to the board, who makes the final decision at a public meeting. Our hearing tonight is informal. I'll ask questions related to the direct testimony presented tonight. I'll call and question witnesses as I deem appropriate and necessary, and will decide all questions of procedure. Irrelevant, immaterial, or unduly repetitious evidence will be excluded. Any part of the evidence may be received in written form, and all testimony must be under oath. Hearsay evidence may be used for the purpose of supplementing or explaining other evidence, but shall not be sufficient in and of itself to support a finding by me unless it would be admissible over objections in a civil action. Our order of presentation tonight is as follows. Mr. Grady of the Development Services Department will provide a brief introduction of each agenda item. We'll then turn to the applicant. The applicant and their team has a total presentation time of 15 minutes. We'll then go back to the county, the Development Services staff planner who was assigned the case. They will have 5 minutes to present the staff findings. We'll then go to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission also has 5 minutes to explain consistency with the comprehensive plan. We'll then turn to proponents, anyone who would like to speak in favor of an application. Everyone combined has a total time of 15 minutes. That is the same when we go to opponents, anyone who wants to speak against an application. Total presentation time, 15 minutes. We go back to county staff, who has 5 minutes to address any issues or recommendation changes they'd like or comments. And then finally, we go back to the applicant, who has 5 minutes for rebuttal. If you do plan to speak when you come up to the podium, or if you are virtual participating, if you could always start by giving us your name and address for the record. We are recording this and we want to make sure we have your name and address correct. Regarding the presentation time, as I said, for proponents and opponents, if you have a designated speaker, often that's a good way, an efficient way to use your time. If not, we will tally how many people want to speak in favor or in opposition, and we will divide that 15 minutes equally. The clerk will do that, and you'll note what your time is. When you're finished speaking, if you're here in the building, if you could see Will, he's from the clerk's office to my right, and sign in with your name and address and also the petition number that you were speaking about. Let me now ask Mr. Clark of the County Attorney's Office to explain the legal requirements for oral argument that govern your participation at the Board of County Commissioners meeting. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Ms. Finch. Good evening. My name is Cameron Clark. I'm an assistant county attorney. Before I begin, I just want to check something with Mr. Grady. I've noted that there's a change in date as to the deadline for filing oral argument, changing it to September 21st. I think there's a revised agenda sheet, but just to confirm that that's going to be the date that I read into the record. I think it originally said September 18th, but the deadline will actually be September 21st. And Brian, I don't think you actually need to say anything on that. You can comment on that after I'm done. But tonight's public hearing is the first step of a two-step rezoning process. This hearing is a time for rezoning applicants and interested parties to present evidence and testimony. Any evidence presented tonight will become the complete factual record of each application, and no additional evidence can be introduced after the closing of each application. The second step of the rezoning process is a public meeting before the Board of County Commissioners, where the board will take a decision on each application heard tonight. Tonight's applications are scheduled to be heard by the board at its October 13th, 2020 land use meeting. When considering applications, the board will only review the record created at tonight's hearing and the recommendation made by the hearing master for each application. The hearing master will file a recommendation for each application heard tonight on September 9th. Any party of record wishing to address the board at its public meeting must execute and submit a request for oral argument form explaining why oral argument is necessary. Requests for oral argument must be responsive to the hearing master's recommendation. Therefore, such request cannot be filed until after the hearing master has submitted her recommendation to the county on September 9th. Following this date, any party wishing to address the board at a public meeting will have 10 days to submit a request for oral argument to the clerk of the Board of County Commissioners. Therefore, for tonight's applications, if you wish to address the board at its October 13th land use meeting, you must file your request for oral argument between September 9th and the close of business on September 21st. While the board is not required to hear oral argument at the public meeting, the board can elect to hear oral argument from a party of record. A party of record is an individual who fits into at least one of the following 4 categories. First, someone who is present tonight and presents testimony or documentary evidence. Second, someone who is certified by the U.S. Postal Service as having been mailed notice of tonight's hearing. Third, someone who submitted documentary evidence to the master file at least 2 business days prior to tonight's hearing. Fourth, someone who submitted documentary evidence by proxy at tonight's hearing. Should the board elect to hear oral argument, parties of record will be eligible to address the board if their requests for oral argument are responsive to the hearing master's recommendation, and if they clearly set forth why oral argument is necessary to address at least one of the 4 outstanding issues that are laid out in Section 10.03.04E of the Land Development Code. If the board elects to hear oral argument, the content of that argument shall be limited to the content of the testimony and other evidence submitted verbally or in writing to the hearing master tonight. It is the role of the County Attorney's Office to ensure that only individuals who have met these requirements are allowed to speak before the board, and to ensure that no new evidence or testimony is introduced or allowed at the board's public meeting. For these reasons, please make sure that all information you wish the board to consider at the public meeting is entered in tonight's record. Thank you.
Mr. Clark, I appreciate it. As I mentioned, all testimony must be under oath. So if you plan to speak tonight, if you could please stand, raise your right hand, and I'll swear you in. And this would go for the same for anyone who would like to speak virtually as well. If you could please be sworn in. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you. Please be seated. So with that, Mr. Grady, if you could please call the first case.
The first agenda item is agenda item C1, rezoning standard application 20-0681. The applicant is David Wright with TSP Companies Incorporated. The request is rezone from agricultural single-family conventional 1 to residential single-family conventional 3. Kevin DeFrank with county staff will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
All right, I understand, Mr. Wright, the applicant is virtual.
Yes, good evening, Ms. Finch. For the record, I am David Wright, president of TSP Companies. Our address is P.O. Box 1016, Tampa, Florida 33601. Tonight, I'm presenting a request to rezone a 0.89 acre parcel of land from ASC1 to RSC2 restricted. The original request was to rezone to RSC3, has been revised to rezone to RSC2 restricted based on discussions with Planning Commission staff. The property is non-conforming to the ASC1 zoning district standards as it is less than 1 acre in size. Therefore, rezoning is necessary in order to allow redevelopment of the property. The proposed restriction is to limit the parcel to 1 single-family dwelling unit in order to maintain compatibility with the surrounding properties in the Garden Estates Character District of the Brandon Community Plan. The future land use designation is Res 4, and the property is located within the Garden Estates District of the Brandon Community Plan area and within the urban service area. The property is located on the north side of Giles Road, approximately 700 feet east of Bell Shoals Road. Environmental Protection Commission staff confirmed there are no wetlands located on the subject property. The property is not mapped as significant wildlife habitat by Hillsborough County. The adjacent properties to the north, south, east, and west are zoned ASC1, and there is a 4-acre parcel to the northwest that is zoned RSC4. Although a transportation analysis is not required for a standard rezoning application, transportation staff reviewed the request and noted the request would not result in a change to the property's potential trip generation, and transportation staff has no objection to the request. Planning Commission staff reviewed the request and found it to be consistent with the future of Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan for Unincorporated Hillsborough County and the Brandon Community Plan, and to meet the requirements of the Garden Estates Character District. Development Services staff found the request to be approvable with restrictions, and no agencies or departments have objected to the request. We prepared a professional and thorough application package in accordance with the requirements of the Land Development Code and the Comprehensive Plan. We noticed the surrounding property owners, and no objections to the request have been received. Based on the documentation within Republic Record, In my testimony tonight, I respectfully request your recommendation for approval of RZ-20-0681, and I'm available for any questions.
Just have a couple of questions, Mr. Wright. I just want to verify, the original request you filed was for RSC3, is that correct?
Correct, RSC3.
Because it must be a typo in the staff report. In the first paragraph, it says that you filed for RSC2 and then amended it to RSC2 with restrictions, but you originally filed for RSC3. In fact, the agenda still says RSC3.
That's correct. It was originally RSC3.
So you're asking for RSC2 restricted.
That's correct.
Okay. And my second question was just to verify that you do plan to connect to public water and sewer.
Yes, we do.
And then finally, do you know why this parcel, any of the parcel history, why this is less than an acre in ASC1?
No, I do not know why that is, but I believe there are a couple other lots within the vicinity that are also the same, similar size.
That was the end of my questions. Thank you very much. Development Services.
Good evening, everyone. Kevin DeFrank with Development Services. I must first say that I am a bit upset with myself after seeing the typos in the report. But as the applicant stated, the original request was to rezone the subject property from the existing ASC1 zoning district to the proposed RSC3 zoning district. And after further communications with the applicant agreed to rezone the property or the same property to the proposed RSC2R restricted zoning district. Now, the site is located in an area comprised of low, medium density, rural, suburban scale residential uses. The overall area is within the Res 4 flu category that could potentially permit a maximum of 4 units per acre. The overall area is also within the urban service area with publicly owned and operated potable water and wastewater facilities available. The site is adjacent to property zone ASC1, but within the general area, there are properties zone RSC4, RSC3, and RSC2. And many of those properties zone RSC3 and RSC4 with existing residential structures are smaller than half an acre. So based on those considerations, staff finds the proposed RSC2R zoning district compatible with existing zoning districts and development pattern in the area. And therefore, staff finds the amended request approvable with the following restriction that the 0.89 acre parcel shall be limited to 1 single family dwelling unit / lot. Thank you, and I am available for questions.
Well, you answered my questions, but thank you so much. Planning Commission.
Jawan Haley, Planning Commission. The subject property is designated residential 4 on the future land use map. It is located within the limits of the Brandon Community Plan. It is located within the urban service area. The request is to rezone the subject property from agriculture single-family conventional 1 to residential single-family conventional 2 restricted to allow for the development of a single-family residential dwelling. The restriction is to prevent the lot from being subdivided further in order to meet compatibility requirements set by the Garden Estates Character District in the Brandon Community Plan. The proposal meets the compatibility requirements of Policy 1.4 as the predominant character of the area is single-family residential dwellings at comparable densities. The proposal also meets the intent of Objective 16 and its accompanying policies, 16.2, 16.3, 16.8, and 16.10, that require new development, infill, and redevelopment to be compatible with the surrounding area in character, lot size, and density. In this case, the proposal is consistent with the general character of the surrounding area, which is low-density, single-family residential dwellings. The proposal is also consistent with Goal 12 and Objective 12-1 of the community design component in the future land use element. This goal and objective requires new developments to recognize the existing community and be designed to relate to and be compatible with the predominant character of the surrounding area. The proposal fulfills this requirement. The proposed development is also consistent with the intent of the Brandon Community Plan and the Livable Communities element of the comprehensive plan. It meets specifically, it meets the intent of Goal 5, Strategies 3, 4, and 5E, which require each of the character districts to follow a specific development pattern. The subject site is located within the Garden Estates Character District. The proposal meets the requirements of the district and its designation by providing single-family residential dwellings on at least half-acre lots. Based upon these considerations, the Planning Commission finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. Thank you.
So much, Ms. Haley. I appreciate it. All right. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor? Anyone in support of this application? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition? No one. Mr. Grady, anything else?
Nothing further.
All right. Mr. Wright, anything else from you before we close?
No, thank you.
All right. With that, then we'll close rezoning 20-0681 and go to the next case.
The next item, agenda item C2, rezoning standard 20-0736. The applicant's TNR LLC. The request is from AR is the request to rezone from AR agricultural rural to AS1 agricultural single family 1. Kevin DeFrank with county staff will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
Good evening.
Steve Allison, representing petitioner. This is about as straightforward as an application gets. Happy to be involved with it because of that. I find it consistent with comp plan, compatible with the neighborhood, and compliant with all applicable regulations of the Land Development Code. And I have nothing further to add, concur with the staff reports. Also, just a side note, I congratulate staff on this setup under extraordinary circumstances. I think.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Mr. Allison. They deserve it for sure. They do. Thank you. If you could sign in with the clerk's office. Mr. DeFrank.
Again, Kevin DeFrank with Development Services. And as the applicant stated, the request is to rezone the subject property from the existing AR zoning district to the proposed AS1 zoning district. And the site is located in an area comprised of low-density, rural-scale, residential, and agricultural uses. The majority of the area is within the Res 1 flu category that can potentially permit a maximum of 1 unit per acre. The overall area is also within the rural service area with no publicly owned and operated potable water and wastewater facilities available. And the site is adjacent to property zone AR and AS1. And thus the applicant proposes to develop up to 3 single-family lots on this site. And this site is approximately 3.37 acres and within a flu category that can potentially permit a maximum of 1 unit per acre as already established. Based on those considerations, staff finds the proposed AS1 zoning district compatible with the existing zoning districts and development pattern in the area. And therefore, staff recommends approval of the request. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
At this time, but thank you. Planning Commission.
Jawan Haley, Planning Commission. The subject site is designated Residential 1 on the future land use map. It's located within the limits of the South Shore Community Plan. It is located within the rural service area. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject property from agricultural rural to agricultural single family 1 for the development of up to 3 single family lots. The intent of the Residential 1 future land use category is to designate areas for rural residential uses at 1 dwelling unit per acre that are compatible with short-term agricultural uses. The proposal to rezone the subject site to agricultural single family 1 meets the requirements of the Residential 1 land use category and Objective 9 and policies 9.1 and 9.2. The proposal is also consistent with the development pattern and the surrounding area. The surrounding area has existing AS1 zoning districts to the north, south, northwest, and southeast of the subject site. Existing uses include residential and agricultural uses. The proposal is therefore compatible with the surrounding area and meets the intent of Objective 16 and policies 16.1, 16.2, 16.3, 16.8, and 16.10. The community design component of the future land use element provides policy direction regarding residential development in the rural area. Goal 7, Objective 7-1, and its accompanying policies seek to preserve rural residential areas as a viable alternative to urban and suburban. The proposed rezoning to AS1 meets the intent of preserving rural residential lifestyles. Goal 12 and Objective 12-1 of the community design component directs new development to relate to the predominant character of the surroundings and be designated to be compatible with the area. Their request fulfills the intent of Goal 12 and Objective 12-1. The subject site is located within the limits of the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Community Plan, and the proposed rezoning is consistent with the Cultural Historic Objective 1, which encourages sustainable growth that preserves the environment and cultural identity and livability. The proposed rezoning is rural residential in character and will preserve the cultural identity and livability of the surrounding area. The proposed rezoning is also compatible with the Cultural Historical Objective 4, which seeks to maintain housing opportunities for all groups. In this case, the proposed rezoning would provide rural residential housing for those in the rural service area. Based upon these considerations, the Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the future Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone that would like to speak in support? Anyone in support of this application? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition? No one. All right, Mr. Grady, anything else?
Nothing further.
All right, Mr. Allison, anything else? Close rezoning 20-0736 and go to the next case.
Next item, agenda item C3, rezoning standard application 20-0756. The applicant Pete Piacenta. The request is to rezone from agricultural industrial to M manufacturing. Kevin DeFrank with county staff will provide staff presentation after presentation by the applicant.
The applicant here. Good evening.
Good evening, Brent Spain of Theriac and Spain, 9100 Conroy Windermere Road, Suite 200, Windermere, Florida. On behalf of the applicant, Peter Piacente, I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you all this evening, certainly under unique circumstances, to say the least.
For sure.
As a preliminary matter, if not already incorporated into the record, I would just ask that the staff report and all the department comments be incorporated. Briefly stated, as staff indicate, our client is seeking to rezone approximately 4.62 acres of land located on the northern side of Jensen Road at 6230 Jensen Road. The parcel is located within the light industrial future land use category and is currently zoned AI, agricultural, industrial, and our client is requesting the property be rezoned to manufacturing. The subject site is within the urban service area and falls within the limits of the industrial district of the Riverview Community Plan. For the reasons stated in the various department comments and in the staff report, we respectfully submit that the proposed rezoning from AI to M is consistent with the county's comprehensive plan and the county's land development regulations, including the manufacturing zoning district requirements. The proposed rezoning is also consistent with the existing development pattern along Jensen Road, which includes M-zone property in proximity to the east, west, and south of the subject site, as well as an industrial PUD to the west. One thing I would note is in conjunction with the rezoning application, we have requested a waiver from the intersection criteria for the location of commercial uses outlined in policy 22.2 of the future land use element. And this is being requested because while the applicant's proposed use of the property is anticipated to include a retail wholesale component for construction materials, but that use does not constitute strip commercial development as addressed in FLU Objective 22. Moreover, the applicant's proposed use of the property is, again, compatible with the prevailing types of uses on the surrounding properties, including auto-related uses and an asphalt processing and manufacturing plant. And that inclusion of a retail wholesale component at this location would be consistent with the development pattern along Jensen Road. With those remarks, we will respectfully ask a recommendation of approval, including the requested waiver, and we would stand ready to answer any questions.
My only question is just to have you acknowledge on the record that you're aware of the performance standards for the particular industrial use, that they meet the light industrial rather than the heavy industrial category.
Yes, and we've had a written exchange with the Planning Commission staff on that point, so we acknowledge it.
All right, thank you so much. Planning Commission, Mr. DeFrank.
Yes, Kevin DeFrank with Development Services. As the applicant already stated, the request is to rezone the subject property from the existing AI zoning district to the proposed M zoning district. And I would like to note that should this rezoning request be approved, the proposed uses will require site development plan approval, and the proposed retail of construction materials use shall be subordinate to the proposed principal uses. In the LI flu category, heavy industrial uses as defined by the Land Development Code are prohibited. The proposed industrial uses outlined in the applicant's request statement are subject to compliance with the performance standards, as already mentioned. These performance standards determine the classification of the use as either light industrial or heavy industrial, and therefore, if any proposed use or uses meet the performance standards to be defined as heavy industrial, said use would not be permitted. Now, the site is located in an area comprised of light and heavy industrial, low density residential, and natural preservation uses. The majority of the areas within the LI flu category that can potentially permit concentrated industrial development that involves processing of non-hazardous and non-toxic materials and create a minimum degree of impact to the surrounding environment. The overall area is also within the City of Tampa service area. And the site is adjacent to property zone AI and PD, but within the general area, there are other properties zoned M. The site is between a large single-family home, residential lot, and mobile home lot. However, within this area, the existing industrial type uses include mineral mining, mineral processing / production, open storage, vehicle salvage / storage, scrap metal materials recycling, etc. Based on those considerations, staff finds the proposed M zoning district compatible with the existing zoning districts and development pattern in the area. And therefore, staff recommends approval of the request. Thank you, and I am available for questions.
I don't have any, but thank you for your testimony. Planning Commission.
Jawan Haley, Planning Commission. The subject property is designated light industrial on the future land use map. It is located within the limits of the Riverview and South Shore community plans. It is located within the urban service area. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject site from agricultural, industrial to manufacturing. The proposed rezoning meets the intent of Objective 1 of the future land use element. It also meets the intent of Policy 1.4 as it is compatible with the surrounding area that has several manufacturing zone parcels in proximity to the subject site. The subject site is located between a single-family residential lot and mobile home park lot in the agricultural industrial zoning district. These residential uses are non-conforming and will be phased out as they are permitted in the light industrial category or compatible with the surrounding development pattern. According to Policy 1.4, compatibility does not mean the same as, rather it refers to the sensitivity of development proposals in maintaining the character of existing development. A rezoning from AI to manufacturing would maintain the light industrial character of this area as there are already several manufacturing zoning districts in close proximity. The subject site meets the intent of Objective 16 and Policies 16.2 and 16.3 regarding the protection of adjacent land uses through various buffering and mitigation techniques. The subject site does not meet commercial locational criteria, and per Policy 22.7, a waiver is required, and a waiver was submitted by the applicant. The waiver states that the proposed commercial wholesale retail component of the manufacturing use is not an example of strict commercial development and is in keeping with the manufacturing uses on Jensen Road. Planning Commission staff supports the waiver and recommends that the Hillsborough Board of County Commissioners grant the applicant a waiver to commercial locational criteria. The proposed rezoning also meets the intent of Objective 26 and Policy 26.5 that seeks to restrict non-conforming uses in industrial and employment areas for securing longer-term economic development. The applicant has proposed a limited commercial and wholesale presence related to the manufacturing activities on site, satisfying Policy 26.6 in the future land use element. The community design component in the future land use element also contains policy direction about designing developments that relate to the predominant character of the surrounding area. Per Go 12, new developments should recognize the existing community and be designed in a way that is compatible with the established character of the area. The proposal is consistent with policy with Goal 12 and Objective 12-1 in the community design component. The request is also consistent with the economic development objectives of the South Shore area-wide system plan, which defer to the visions of the individual communities and South Shore, including Riverview. Within the Riverview Community Plan, the subject site is located within the Industrial Character District, and the proposed rezoning meets the intent of the Character District through the attraction of industry and creation of desirable employment areas. Based upon these considerations, the Planning Commission finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haley. Is there anyone that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor of the application? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition? No one. All right, Mr. Grady, anything else?
Nothing further.
All right, sir, anything else before we close? All right, thank you for that. Then we'll close rezoning 20-0756 and go to the next case.
The next item is agenda item D1, rezoning PD 19-1461. The request is rezone from plan development to plan development. Laura Marley with county staff will provide staff recommendation as a presentation by the applicant.
All right. Good evening.
Make sure I get this right, Madam Hearing Master.
If you turn it to the side, there you go. Yep, perfect.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
Not as much from up here as the other podium. It's a pleasure to see you, Ms. Finch. I'm Michael Horner, 14502 North Dale Mabry Highway, Suite 200, Tampa 33618. Representing the applicant and owner of this request, Mr. Chris Jordan, who has been involved in this effort for over a year. We have several individuals, I believe, that we're planning on attending will speak in support. If I could have the clerk let me know when I have 3 minutes remaining so I don't shortchange my client from speaking. Ms. Finch, this is a 1.28 acre tract. It's at the north end of Inglewood Drive in the Gibbston area that truncates just south of the the Bullfrog Creek. It is Res 6 in the comp plan. It is in the urban service area. Public sewer is approximately 3,100 feet away. Certainly cost prohibitive for this type of use to absorb those costs and extend public sewer lines, lift stations, pump stations that distance. For that reason, we have asked for septic tanks to be utilized, and we're proposing one unified septic tank and drain field for this use. I believe that the staff objections are technical in nature. It's not a land use compatibility. It's not a density. It's not a setback issue. Certainly not a traffic issue. So I'll address those issues as I go through my presentation. The Land Development Code, as you may be aware, Ms. Finch allows, this is under 611, 110 of the LDC, allows density of RV parks up to 12 units per acre. We are proposing a 10 unit or a 10 lot park, which is a density of 7.8 units per acre, which is just over half of that maximum density permitted. We initially filed a request, and it's incorporated into our narrative report that requested 3 waivers. The first waiver was for an exemption or an exception to the arterial collector direct access requirement. Clearly, Inglewood Drive is a residential roadway. It truncates to Bullfrog Creek, as I indicated, has very low volumes on it, no traffic counts. We have sought that waiver, and I believe staff in their report indicated they support that waiver granting. The other two waivers that we incorporated in our initial filing as well indicated a relief for the dustless surface versus the paved surface requirements under 611-110. If you notice on our site plan, I have it on the screen, we do say paved roadway. So we are removing that waiver tonight from consideration. My client will agree to pave that smaller section. At one time, in a different lot layout, that roadway was extensive from north to south, much more impervious surface. So we have now truncated that, much more efficient layout, and we will agree to the pavement. So that second waiver, number 2, goes away. Third is a sidewalk waiver, which is outside your purview, Ms. Finch. We will defer, as the staff report indicates, to 602 of the Land Development Code, which is a LUHO provision. We are not asking you, certainly, to grant any relief to this. This is a responsibility that my client will have to accept. Staff has indicated they may very well object if that variance goes forward, but we're going to set that issue aside tonight. So we will not be ruling on that issue. In terms of transportation EPC, we have no objections from EPC. They have noted the surface waters on site. They have noted that we have to maintain our setbacks. The site plan of record that we filed, in fact, incorporates 30-foot setbacks from all of those areas. Those wetland areas were permanently recognized on a plat that was filed in 2015. Therefore, we defer to that plat. I'm going to file a copy of that to you. Certainly, if we need to redelineate that to make sure the EPC, they accept the prior delineation, we will. However, we do not anticipate any conflict with that. We are not proposing any encroachment into those surface wetland areas. There's just a small ditch connection on the northern side. You can see it here delineated. Easier to go to a blow up. You can see this ditch connection. It straddles off-site and on-site. A little awful, my apologies. That ditch connection is here. So this proposal maintains and reflects the required 30-foot setback. It is not a preservation setback of 50 feet. In fact, I'm going to file a national inventory wetland sheet that shows only the surface waters exist, no other wetlands exist on this property. In terms of transportation, we certainly have no impact. Staff recognizes low peak hour. This is not a peak hour sensitive use, and we have no impact in that area. This has a unique history, Ms. Finch. I was involved in this many years ago, and it was approved for 15 total lots, both mobile homes and RVs. They had individual septic tanks at that time, actually 2 drain fields and septic tank areas. That seems to be one of the issues tonight, if not the only issue, is the use of septic tank, particularly in a coastal high hazard area. I would note for the record that there was a PRS filing in 2015 that allowed for 3 single-family lots. That's why we have 3 recorded folio numbers of record. That request was approved, so we are amending that PD through this rezoning for the 10-lot RV park. That PRS also had a companion request, a variance action that went before the land use hearing officer. That action was VAR 15-0351 that allowed a 3rd lot on a septic tank for all 3 lots. So they went from 2 lots of record to 3. So our position is it was already approved and is currently approved for 3 septic tanks, 3 drain field, while our request is solely for 1 drain field, 1 septic tank with equivalent flows or less. So if you run the numbers, 3 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes, 300 gallons per day, that's 800 to 900 gallons per day. We are at 75 gallons per day. Times 10, that would be 750. We believe we are equivalent to that impact or less However, Mr. Grady indicated that, I think as recent as today, the 4 o'clock email, that we could not utilize or transfer that entitlement from the prior VAR action before the LUHO to this site. My position is that variance is as all variances are, they run with the land, they don't run with a type of zoning. However, because of unique arguments before the LUHO and single family versus this type of rezoning, Mr. Grady ruled that it would not transfer. So we are asking for consideration of that and allowing and deferring the ultimate density determination to be made prior to site development review. If we go to the utility department and we file our respective engineering studies and they say it is 8 RVs or tiny homes, if you will, then the answer is 8. If it's 9, then the answer is 9. We are asking for up to 10, and then we're going to file proposed conditions that allows that number to go down if in fact we have to. We don't believe it's warranted. We believe we have an impact less or equal to than the prior action of record. Ms. Finch, 611.110 is a fairly detailed section of the Land Development Code. I'm going to file the entire section in the record for your review. You're probably familiar with it. We will meet all requirements of that section, with the exception of the collector arterial status, which we're asking for you to grant a waiver to that. We will meet all setbacks, density, lot size requirements. As you're aware, the maximum duration under that 611.110 for an RV park is 120 days. So it's only 4 months. So these uses are designed for seasonal use. This is not a permanent dwelling. This is not a permanent construction, permanent foundation. These units pull in. These people come down from up north, enjoy the summer seasonal, winter and fall, summer RV season. They don't look for the higher end parks. They don't care about the swimming pool, the amenities. These are people that just want to come down. It's next to Bullfrog Creek and enjoy the amenities of Tampa and South Hillsborough County. That also requires no loudspeakers. I might add that this is the coastal high hazard area. There is no storm shelter requirement because the minimum requirement number of units is 25 and we are at 10. So if a pending storm event comes, 24-hour notice, my client pulls up trucks and those units are gone in 24 hours, if not sooner. The Planning Commission also cites in their inconsistent finding the use of septic tanks being prohibited in the coastal high hazard area. And for that reason, we are agreeing that we will seek that specific accommodation, but we need to go through that process. So we're asking for a use compatibility determination for the number of lots. I would note for the coastal high hazard area for the record, only manufactured homes and mobile homes are not permitted in the coastal high hazard. RVs, tiny homes, smaller structures, self-sufficient, pull in, pull out, those are all permitted by right. Our site plan, Ms. Finch, I think is a fairly creative design. It's a simple, efficient layout. It establishes a common area and a green area all along the river. Bullfrog Creek, we're offering no impervious surface on this area except for a gazebo, no foundations, no slabs. Hope to rehabilitate the dock that's currently on Bullfrog Creek. Reflects all surface water and ditch connections with all setbacks noted of record. We're relocating an existing septic tank drain field all the way to the northeast corner. So we are the furthest away from Bullfrog Creek. The plan that was approved for the current 3 single-family lots has those septic tanks much closer to Bullfrog Creek. So we believe our proposal is much more environmentally sensitive. Extensive landscaping and fencing are proposed. There's a huge vegetation barrier along the eastern boundary line. We have fencing on the perimeter as well. Visitors who love this setting but don't need the full amenities are the ones looking for alternative housing opportunities.
Mr. Horner, Will just wants you to know it's 3 minutes left.
Appreciate it. I'll close. The use is compatible, it's consistent, and certainly more appropriate coastal high hazard area than 3 permanent single family homes year round. I'm going to file some conditions of approval drafted, also some additional documents that I'll go through upon rebuttal so that we don't lose track of those filings. Do you have any questions right now? I'll be happy to answer them.
I have some questions, but let's hear from the rest of your presentation and then I'll ask you
Very
later.
good. I'm going to call Mr. Jordan, please.
Good evening.
Hello, ma'am. How you doing?
Good.
Just
You give us your name and address, please.
Okay, Christopher Jordan, 504 South Kings Avenue, Brandon, Florida, 33511.
Thank you.
My name is Christopher Jordan. I'm one of the owners of the property and company Unique Tiny Homes of Tampa Bay. I'm a retired law enforcement and living and working as a real estate company broker owner for the last 16 plus years. I absolutely love Florida and many of the areas around me, including Gibsonton. One of the only things I think Gibsonton has been missing is to draw people in to the area. A unique riverfront tiny home community could sure help that. My vision of this beautiful riverfront community has been laid out on the plans provided to the county and for this hearing. I very respectfully ask that you grant us this opportunity to grow this wonderful property and help beautify this block and piece of river as we want to be a destination location for many years to come. Nice and simple.
Thank you so much. If you could please sign in with the clerk's office. Mr. Horner, is that everyone that wanted to speak on your behalf?
Any time left, clerk? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there's a minute left on the clock.
So, Ms. Finch, our initial plan, it's back on the overhead, was actually for 16 lots with 2 drain fields. So you can see we have amended this, dropped 6 lots entirely and allowed a much less intensive use. This is the PD plan directly to our east. This is Lennar Home subdivision, 115 lots, 4 or 5,000 square foot lots. Again, we are continuing. They provided for a common area along Bullfrog Creek. Our plan brings that common area, no impervious surface, onto our site. These are examples of the units, well furnished, self-contained. They're quite attractive inside. They offer everything, easy in, easy out, and all the amenities of a high-end mobile or a high-end motel room. Then I have proposed conditions that I'll file as well. Be happy to answer any questions.
I do. I have a couple. The original PD, was that created because of the zoning conformance process? You know?
I believe it was.
Because there is a little ZC next to on the agenda.
That's
there.
right.
So I'm guessing it was an existing use that was recognized.
That is correct, ma'am.
All right. And so those, were they mobile homes? Do you know? Were they RVs?
Actually, a combination of both.
Okay. And so that's how it came to be, that there are septic tanks and RVs or mobile homes on that property.
Yes.
Okay.
And then it was also approved through the Board of County Commissioners. We had a public hearing.
Through the zoning conformance process.
That's right. So it was not just granted by the Planning Commission. It was an actual public hearing, advertised and approved. That's right.
I understand. All right. And so you are asking to rezone the property. And I understand the variance that was created to, or that was granted to grant the third lot. I understand that. But you're asking to rezone the property. And do those septic tanks that are existing have to be removed to accommodate the new plan?
Yeah, those tanks are removed for the most part. My client has put a lot of time and effort, resources into this. So we will be putting a new system in that meets all public health safety requirements under HRS permitting criteria.
All right. And let's see, let me just make sure. That was my only question.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Development Services.
Good evening, Laura Marley with Development Services. The applicant is proposing to rezone the vacant subject property from an existing PD for 3 residential lots to a PD for a 10-unit recreational vehicle park. The applicant is not proposing to connect to the sewer system. Per the LDC Coastal High Hazard Area section, the project is required to connect to sewer service, and per the septic tank section, the use of septic tanks for new development shall be prohibited in the Coastal High Hazard Area. The utilities section has criteria in the flow by type table located within the public utilities rate resolution that also requires the applicant to connect to sewer service. Water Resources Services stated that the subject property should be served by Hillsborough County Water and Wastewater Service. The applicant has asked for waivers for the transportation items. The applicant has addressed those, so I won't readdress them. EPC stated that a separate wetland impact mitigation proposal must be submitted for review, and the Planning Commission finds the request inconsistent with the future of Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. In summary, staff does find the proposed rezoning use compatible with the surrounding area, although the project must connect to sewer and water and resolve other agencies' comments. The project cannot be supported because the applicant does not propose to connect to the sewer system. There's specific criteria that has been reviewed and interpreted by staff that cannot be waived via this process. There was a meeting with staff that gave the applicant an avenue to work with appropriate staff. And as you already noted, the previous variance the applicant spoke about was not for an RV park, but for 3 residential lots. Staff finds the request to be not supportable.
Marley or Mr. Grady, whoever would like to answer this question, from a code perspective, what is the effect of the approval of that variance for the 3 lots and the 3 septic tanks and the removal of those septic tanks and now rezoning the property for a new use that is not 3? Is there any vesting or something like that, Mr. Grady?
I can speak to that.
Thank you.
The issue is there's twofold, as alluded to in Mr. Horner's presentation. Again, the original variance was for a 3rd lot, single family lot on well and septic. Therefore, per the criteria dealing with exceptions for not connecting to public water and sewer in the urban service area, there's provisions that for non-residential uses, both for single family and non-residential, you can have 2 equivalent residential connections if it's deemed not feasible and a 3rd through variance. Therefore, again, since the variance was for a 3rd single family lot on it, and again, the reason you can't transfer it because the fact set specific to that variance was for a single family lot. Therefore, they would have to redo that. The issue is again, in conversations with our utilities staff, is that, again, it's a determination of equivalent ERCs, and so it's not, my understanding, ERCs and flows for RVs are not the same as, for single family residential. So there has been questions and discussions, and even as of today, between the applicant and our staff regarding, how many equivalent residential connections a 9-unit or an 8-unit or 10-unit RV park would generate. And part of the issue on our end, really at the end of the day, is that, if you look in the provisions in the coastal hazard area where basically it prohibits use of septic tanks, and it makes it, there's an exception language in there that deals with under what circumstances, exemptions to that would be permitted. But at the end of the day, since the most you can do is, even if you got to the point where they could potentially ask for septic, the most they could do without variances is 2 ERCs. Information we have would say that, clearly it would appear that the proposed development in total would exceed the 2 ERCs and require a variance if, again, they ultimately could apply for the variance. And so, from our perspective, since the zoning is entitling the property, we're not supportive of the request because, again, there's coastal high hazard prohibitions of septic, and again, they would be exceeding the maximums ultimately they would be able to do based on the information we have under the code, even if they could at some point apply for it. So again, given that prohibition, we're just not supportive of. Again, as we noted, it's not really a compatibility issue. It's just, again, given the criteria in the code and the prohibitions of septic tank for new development. And again, this is new development, even though it's going from single family it's still new development, so it's subject to those requirements.
Let me just follow up with one additional question, and that is if you could expound on the overall intent of the prohibition of septic tanks in the coastal high hazard area. Why does that provision exist?
I don't have all the background details regarding why that prohibition exists. I would assume it would probably have to do, again, given the fact that you've got potential for, extreme storm events in that area. It may, and again, that's probably since, at the end of the day, the issue with septic tanks is ultimately a water quality and health issue. Is that I think, again, that's the concern about having, that kind of septic in that area. Because again, even if you look, and it would stand to reason, because if you look at the exemption language, it talks about, determination that septic tank will not adversely affect public health, will not degrade surface and groundwater, and where the health department determines that the soil conditions, water table elevations, and setback provisions are adequate to meet state requirements. So I think clearly it's, again, a water quality issue. And so I think there's a desire to minimize exposure of those type of systems in the coastal high hazard.
All right, thank you so much for that clarification. I appreciate it. Let's go to the Planning Commission.
Jawan Haley, Planning Commission. The subject property is designated residential 6 on the future land use map. The subject property is within the limits of the Gibsonton Community Plan and is located within the urban service area. The proposed plan development seeks to allow for a maximum of 10 recreational vehicle spaces, given the subject property size of 1.28 acres for a site within the residential 6 land use classification. The site can be considered for up to 15 RV spaces under the Land Development Code. The request is consistent with the request is consistent with and an allowable use within the residential 6 future land use classification. The site falls within the boundaries of the coastal high hazard area. As per policy 6.6 of the coastal management element, the use of septic tanks for new development shall be prohibited in the coastal high hazard area. Additionally, activity within the coastal high hazard area is vulnerable to natural disaster not experienced by inland areas. This application will be subject to policy 6.2 of the coastal management element, which states that the property owner shall provide adequate data to assess the impacts of the proposed development upon existing infrastructure within the coastal high hazard area, as well as level of service standards established for shelter capacity and clearance time. Bullfrog Creek is located along the northern portion of the site. As per the site plan, the applicant is providing the proper wetland setbacks. This will protect the creek, which is consistent with Objective 4 and Policy 4.1 of the conservation element. The site is located within the Gibsonton Community Plan. The plan encourages new developments along Bullfrog Creek and the Alafaya River to provide open public access to the waterfront via public riverfront parks. This application is meeting the intent of the community plan by providing a common open area along Bullfrog Creek. Overall, the proposed use would allow for a development that is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future land use element for unincorporated Hillsborough County, the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Regarding compatibility with existing development pattern found within the surrounding area, it meets the intent of the Gibsonton Community Plan. However, Planning Commission staff's inconsistency finding is based on the applicant not meeting policy 9.2 of the future land use element, which states that developments must meet or exceed the requirements of all land development regulations as established and adopted by Hillsborough County, the state of Florida, and the federal government, unless such requirements have been previously waived by those governmental bodies. It is Planning Commission staff's understanding that the site is not meeting Land Development Code Section 3.04.00, the coastal high hazard area section, due to the site developing with septic in the coastal high hazard area. Additionally, this development is not meeting the intent of policy 6.6 of the coastal management element, which states that the use of septic tanks for new development shall be prohibited in the coastal high hazard area. And therefore, this request is inconsistent with the future of Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Based on these considerations, the Planning the Planning Commission finds the proposed plan development inconsistent with the future of Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor of this application? Seeing no one, is there anyone in, oh, did I have one? Yes, sir. Sorry. The podium blocks my view of part of the room. Apologize. Come forward and start by giving us your name and address, please.
David Morris, 7012 Lightning Bug Way in Riverview, Florida, 33578. I've been in Florida my whole life, raised right here in Hillsborough County. I've seen a lot of changes, especially in the last few years. Few 100,000 more people coming in every time we turn around. Can't even drive down Big Bend and 301. If any of y'all been down there, you know what I'm talking about. This is a little place, nice, right on a little creek. We're proposing just a few little RVs off the beaten path, not looking for a lot. Want to see about getting some veterans. I'm a veteran myself. Wanted to get some veterans in there. Something that people that don't have a whole lot of money with those other developments that are going in, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 homes everywhere. So I'm speaking in support, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you for coming down. If you could please sign in. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in support? Yes, please come forward. Good evening.
Hi, Michael Jordan, 2111 Bell Shoals Road, Brandon, Florida. My brother's the developer of the property. We've been in the property management business for a lot of years and for more than 20 years in the Tampa area. And I could definitely see this being more of an asset. We take care of the properties that we manage. I believe the project of the tiny home community would be an asset to the Gibsonton area. And talking about affordable and all that, but the gentleman before me already did that. The prior approval for the 3 septics, I believe, should be taken into consideration to allow for a 1-tank system now. Overall, we look forward to hopefully making this project happen. Thank you.
Thank you for coming down. I appreciate it. If you could sign in. Yes, sir. Anybody else that wants to speak in support? All right, seeing no one, is there anyone in opposition to this application? All right, no one? County staff, anything else?
Nothing further.
All right, Mr. Horner, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you, Ms. Finch. I'll be brief. You know why we're here. We've worked hard on this case. My client has invested substantial sums of money on this investment. He has worked through, he's pulled out old tanks. There's been lots of reworking of the ground, grading, landscaping. I think you hit the nail on the head. Mr. Grady and I are not professional engineers, I'll be the first to admit. ERCs get a little bit into the professional engineering world. However, this use clearly is appropriate and compatible, and the type of units that we are asking for are the only units that are allowed in the coastal high hazard area. Cannot do mobile homes or manufactured homes. This is the safest type of unit because, as noted prior, you can remove these within a matter of hours in a pending storm event. Clearly, this is not an issue of septic tanks not being appropriate in the coastal high hazard area. If you pull that variance action, and I apologize, I was going to pull it before I came down here, I did not. I would encourage you to look at those findings of facts, conclusions of law, on that determination that 3 septic tanks and 3 drain fields closer to that Florida class waterway, Bullfrog Creek, and environmental sensitive areas, surface waters, that are protected by EPC, versus our proposed limited tank and septic system on the far eastern, the furthest possible distance away. So if it's about septic tanks being prohibited in the coastal high hazard area, we already have an approved septic system. Not just 1, not just 2, but 3. All we're asking for is to replicate that same impact on a use that has been found consistent meets all provisions except one technical objection, which is a policy provision, D4, that talks about an absolute prohibition of septic tanks in the coastal hazard area. This plan addresses those setback issues. This plan addresses those impacts. This plan addresses it in an environmentally sensitive way. We cannot extend public sewer 3,100 feet to this site. My client should just put the property up for sale tomorrow. This is his dream. This is why he's invested in it. This is what his business is. This is not a Section 8 mobile home park. This is higher end units, some of them brand new, beautiful, highly desirable. In fact, some engineers I spoke with indicated that they would probably divide that ERC rate by half because it's a seasonal use 4 months out of the year. Public water is 55 feet from this site, it's already connected. So $250,000 to extend public sewer when there's already an existing approval by Hillsborough County in recent years under the coastal high hazard area provisions. Just doesn't make a lot of sense for me. So we ask you to support this, allow us the right to at least proceed with that relief opportunity, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. And with that, we'll close rezoning PD 19-1461 and go to the next case.
The next item is item D2, major mod application 19-1462. The applicant's T. True Gardner for Gardner Brewer Martinez Montfort. The request is for a major modification of existing plan development. Israel Monsanto will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
Is the applicant here? Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Finch. Tyler Hudson, 400 North Ashley Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. Before I get into our presentation, I'd like to go ahead and introduce some other members of the project team who are here. First and foremost is my client, the contract purchaser and the developer of this property, Jordan Faralas with Broom Capital. And also here is our engineering team, Greg Roth with Bowler Engineering and Michael Yates with Palm Traffic. Before I get into the crux of the presentation, I'd like to thank Israel Monsanto and Joanne Haley. Even before a global pandemic engulfed Hillsborough County, this was a challenging case, and there's a pretty long road to get here. This is a challenging site, as I'll get into a little bit later on in my presentation, and I just want to thank them for all their assistance. They did a great job putting together the staff report, and so out of respect for my fellow travelers on the agenda this evening, I'm not going to just read back the staff report to you, and Israel and Jawan will do a great job of that in their presentation. What I would like to do is highlight a couple pieces of the staff report and give you a little bit of a broader background about really why we're here. This is a PD from 1979. It's a multi-parcel PD, has about 11 single-family home entitlements to the west. What we are here to talk about specifically is an L-shaped parcel in the middle. It's sort of like if a L fell backwards on itself. It was last touched in 2018. There was a major modification to add about a 3,500 square foot bank parcel to the north. What we're here specifically to do is to re-entitle the strip of land that is now vacant, that's left over from the demolition of a vacant Piccadilly. Site was on the market for a while. The Piccadilly has been out of business for some time. Again, now it's a demolished piece of land. And what we're trying to do specifically is a roughly about 98,000 square foot mixed use development. It's going to be anchored by climate controlled self-storage. We are taking advantage of policies 19.1 and 19.3 of the comprehensive plan, permitting the mixed use density bonus in exchange for 10% of the building being allocated to a non-storage related use. It took us a while to get through exactly how to define that, but we're pleased with what's in the staff report and in the development conditions. The site has really three challenges. It is a wet site. A significant portion of the western piece of the site is wetlands. We're not touching those, but that significantly constrains the buildable, developable envelope of the site. It's also very patchy. We have 3 different future land use categories here. It's about 50% R12, 30% OC20, and the balance of the site is R4, which has presented some challenges. And finally, just the shape of it. It's a fairly thin site compressed between Barnes & Noble to the south, Bank to the north, and then again, pretty significant wetlands to the west. So again, to bring things to a point, we are requesting a major modification to this 1979 PD, last amended in 2018 to build about a 98,000 square foot mixed use building. We are aware of the performance standards that mini warehouse is subject to, and we certainly accept those. We agree with the staff report, and we ask that you adopt its recommendation of approval with the conditions which we agree with. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I don't have any at this time, but thank you. Mr. Monsanto.
Israel Monsanto Development Services, can you hear me? Israel Monsanto Development Services. This major modification is to a plan development 790227. This will increase the square footage for commercial and office uses within 2 parcels. The subject site has 3 future land use classifications: residential 12, residential 4, and office commercial 20. Existing access points will maintain it, one from Northdale Mabry Highway along the east, and cross access to the commercial parcels to the south. Conditions have been proposed to allow development of the subject parcel for commercial general uses and a self-storage facility. An FAR bonus will be permitted as long as a vertically integrated second use for retail space is provided once the building total square footage exceeds 68,609 square feet and up to 95,180 square feet. The retail space will be at least 10% of the building area. Additionally, trip generation cap is being proposed to restrict traffic intense use. With the mixed-use FAR bonus, the project would potentially develop with up to 98,880 square feet as permitted by the future land use classification. Surrounding area is a mixture of commercial and residential uses. The site is within an established commercial and office corridor. Adjacent uses to the north are approved for commercial and office, to the west for single-family residential uses, which is within the same subject PD, and commercial uses to the south and east. Adjacent single-family residential areas to the west are buffered and screened by existing wetlands, with the nearest residential structure located more or less 200 feet from the proposed building envelope. The proposed self-storage facility will be compatible with nearby commercial and office uses. As proposed, this project will qualify for the bonus under the vertically integrated mixed-use provision of Policy 19.3 of the Comprehensive Plan. If the site is not developed with a mixed-use project, the space will be limited to the permitted maximum FAR of the OC20 future land use classification of 0.75, and use will be restricted to those that would not generate intense traffic. No objections were received from other reviewing agencies, and based on the above considerations, the staff recommends approval of the request with the conditions. And I'm available if you have any questions.
But thank you very much. Planning Commission.
Juwan Haley, Planning Commission. The subject property is designated residential 4, residential 12, and office commercial 20 on the future land use map. The site is located within the limits of the Greater Carrollwood-Northdale Community Plan. It is located within the limits of the urban service area. The applicant seeks a major modification to a plan development to allow for a mixed-use project that will utilize the mixed-use bonus to increase the allowable intensity to up to 99,880 square feet for commercial and office uses. The proposed project satisfies the intent of Policy 19.3 by committing to vertically integrate 2 distinct commercial uses, self-storage and retail. Development Services has provided a condition which requires the applicant to develop at least 10% of the square footage of the total development with retail in order to receive the floor area ratio bonus as indicated by Policy 19.1 once the site's total square footage exceeds 72,309 square feet. The 10% retail space is not permitted to be an accessory to the self-storage facility. The application also proposes a cross-access within the site to the previously approved bank to the north, provides a cross-access to the development located to the south of the subject property. The application has demonstrated the integration and interconnectivity of the 4 proposed uses and satisfies the intent of the 4 uses and satisfies the intent of Objective 19. The application, along with the conditions agreed to by the applicant, satisfy the intent of Objective 19 and Policies 19.1 and 19.3 of the future land use element. The subject site does not meet commercial locational criteria for the portions of the site that are residential 4 and residential 12. A waiver has been submitted for review. According to the waiver, the project site and immediate area to the north and west are zoned residential. The parcels to the east and south have a land use designation of OC20. The waiver also notes that the project is located on Dale Mabry Highway. The applicant contends that the development is in harmony with the surrounding developments along Dale Mabry. Planning Commission staff has reviewed the waiver, and the requested mixed-use development and proposed increase in density will facilitate new growth in the urban service area while remaining compatible with the surrounding area. The proposed modification provides a gradual transition from commercial uses to single-family residential development in close proximity to Dale Mabry, an arterial roadway. The proposed modification complements the commercial uses along Dale Mabry Highway and facilitates infill development. Planning Commission staff recommends the Hillsborough Board of County Commissioners approve the commercial locational criteria waiver. The Greater Carrollwood Northdale Community Plan encourages non-residential growth along Dale Mabry Highway. The project is within a half a mile of the designated Dale Mabry Highway and Fletcher Avenue intersection, as indicated by the community plan. The development pattern along Dale Mabry south of this intersection is predominantly light commercial. Based upon these considerations, the Planning Commission finds the proposed major modification consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to conditions proposed by the Development Services Department. Thank you.
Is there anyone that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor of the application? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition? No one. All right. Mr. Grady, anything else before we move forward?
Nothing further.
All right. Sir, anything you'd like to add? All right. Then with that, we'll close major modification 19-1462. We'll go to the next case.
Next item is agenda item D3 is major mod application 20-0368. The request is for a major modification to existing plan development. Israel Monsanto will provide staff recommendation after presentation from the applicant. I will note that that has been handed out is a revised staff report that incorporates the transportation comments that are also being submitted into the record. So and if you have any questions regarding those, I know Israel can go over the changes, and also James Ratliff is available for questions.
So is the only change the transportation comments?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Horner.
Good evening, Ms. Finch. Michael Horner for the record, 14502 North Dale Mabry Highway, Suite 200, Tampa 33618, presenting the applicant contract purchaser, actually the property owner and the applicant this evening. With me tonight is Mr. Jordan Ferralis, who is the developer, as well as Mr. Michael Yates, Palm Traffic Engineering, Mr. Kyle Morrell, Bowler Engineering. For any testimony, Mr. Yates will follow my presentation. Mr. Finch, this is 6.25 acre tract. It's north of Broad Street, east of North Glen. I have the Planning Commission site designated map on the overhead. You can see we are the transitional parcel. We have the southern portion, it's clearly in the Res 20. Everything south and west is Res 20. Everything north and east is in the Res 6. So we are the parcel that is transitioning in this land use neighborhood. We are a block east of Himes Avenue, a major corridor, arterial corridor to the west. Unfortunately, this plan that was approved a couple of years ago, Ms. Finch, is no longer feasible once we went through the increased construction costs, financial feasibility in terms of the mitigation plans, as well as the additional off-site improvements and the change in the marketplace demand. The movement in this market, at least in this area, is now to single family attached. We have worked hard with staff. We appreciate Mr. Monsanto's efforts as well as the Planning Commission staff. This parcel shares, as I said, both Res 20 and Res 6, which permits up to 64 dwelling units total, which is contained within the Planning Commission staff report. We filed this proposed plan, some months ago before COVID hit, and we reflected 62 townhomes, Ms. Finch. We worked with EPC. We filed our impact justifications. This was already addressed with EPC on the prior PD, no changes to those wetlands. However, we had to go through an entire new impact justification review process for the site plan. We're thankful that that was successful. EPC has approved our request, and we have reduced an additional townhome lot unit so that we are now asking for 61 as opposed to 62, and certainly under the 64 threshold. No plan flex, Ms. Finch, is being required. As you know, we have the right under a PD to ask for major modification. A flex up to 500 feet of that Res 20, which would encompass a good portion, if not all of the remaining Res 6 area. That would give us 20 units per acre on the entire 6 acres, over 180 units. We have decided not to do that. We are proposing the same development upland area. We're just dividing the lots in two and allowing for a single family attached product. We have unanimous recommendations of approval from the Planning Commission in terms of consistency findings with goals, policies, and objectives of the future land use element. Development Services likewise finds this supportable with conditions. As Mr. Grady mentioned, we did have a change in filing recently based upon a design exception, a deferment. That design exception was granted over a month and a half ago, but did not make it into the formal zoning intake system. So Mr. Ratliff and staff are allowing that to be reintroduced tonight, and we appreciate that. I'm going to have Mr. Yates address that in more detail. We have all consistency findings of goals, objectives, and policies. We have no objections from any of the review agencies, again, including EPC. I'm not aware of any opposition. I did receive one phone call from a neighbor I believe owns these two lots at the northeast corner. That's the only phone call we received, and she indicated she had no objection and was actually pleased to hear she's next to a wetland and doesn't even have any development abutting her lots. This is in the urban service area. We are connecting to both public water and sewer. We have a proposed density of 9.7 units per acre. Again, that's a blended of the densities between the Res 6 and the Res 20 comp plan. This plan further includes a large pond north of Broad Street, park, recreation area, and a dog park. So separating from Broad Street, we have amenities and open space and a retention pond. Our access is from and to Broad Street. We have an emergency access on the south, to North Glen. We have an emergency access with a Knox box at Broad Street. So there's a gated access for emergency only. The primary access to and from this site is through North Glen. We agree with the staff conditions. Mr. Yates addressed the design exception issues. Now that has been amended to record of those conditions. I would note that the original PD plan, Ms. Finch, reflected 15-foot buffer between the single family detached and our 40-foot wide, 4,000 square foot lots. As part of this plan, we have increased that buffer to 20 feet from 15. In addition to that, we're proposing a 6-foot, 100% opaque PVC fencing. Additionally, Ms. Finch, we have agreed to, as you can see how these buildings are clustered, we have capped all of these buildings at 3 and 4 and 5, actually 4 and 5 units each. So we break up the massing. Next to single family, we have a half right-of-way on the eastern side, which essentially is half of Lincoln that extends further north. We have fencing proposed in addition to the buffering. The only larger clusters, 6, would be internal to the site. Lastly, we agreed to and incorporated a elevation of the proposed townhome units that actually appears on the plan. And we agreed to a binding condition that the development of the units has to be generally consistent with that illustrative design elevation. At this time, I'm going to have Mr. Yates come up, briefly address the design exception and the offsite improvements. Thank you.
Yeah. And then you want me to talk about it? Yes. Okay. Get
that direction. There we go. Good evening, Michael Yates, Palm Traffic, 400 North Tampa Street, Suite 1500. Basically, this is a trip generation from what was previously approved, the 35 single-family homes, as compared to the 61 townhomes that we are proposing currently. As you can see, it's a difference of 24 daily trips, so essentially a wash. AM peak hour trips are essentially the same at 0, and there's 1 additional PM peak hour trip. So virtually a comparison, it's a wash between the existing approved and the proposed land uses. Wanted to walk through perfect. Sorry, a little hard on the angle. So this is the proposed site right here. And then, so basically the design exception that we have worked out with transportation staff is to provide a sidewalk connectivity that doesn't exist today. Currently, sidewalks exist along Himes and along Kirby to the north. And so what we have proposed to do is connect the sidewalk system along Broad and then along North Glen along the frontage, and then connect up to Kirby. So that will create a entire sidewalk grid that allows them to connect the entire system that doesn't exist today. In addition, we have proposed to bring a modified road segment from Kirby down to the project driveway as part of that design exception, which will improve the roadway widths in there. And that's part of all the design exception information that is there.
Can you point to Glen Avenue? Where is that?
It's right here.
And so is that part of the exception, is you don't have to improve that?
We're just improving the section from Kirby, which is here, down to the project entrance, which is roughly here.
And then those sidewalk connections will be made all the way
And
around?
the sidewalk connections will be made in addition to that.
I see. Okay.
The other thing I wanted to walk through is one of the things that came up today in the revised transportation conditions was related to the emergency access. So this is the site plan. We're going to take primary access off of North Glen. This is where the full entrance will be. And we have proposed this as a gated emergency access only. And so what came up in the review in the report we got from staff today on transportation is the issue of dealing with solid waste on this access. And so what we're proposing to do is to change this condition from restricted emergency access to restricted emergency and solid waste access. And so the thought process would be to give them a gated access through that so they can make the circular pattern, come in North Glen, do the trash pickup, and then come out Broad Street.
Is that gated access similar to the emergency vehicle where they have the key? That works with solid waste as well?
Yeah, and that would be the intent. It'd be a key or some type of gate system. We'll meet with solid waste between now and board.
Have you done that before?
I have not, but my understanding it has been done. We've talked about it with transportation. It just wasn't one of the issues that came up in discussions before getting to here. So we will need to meet with solid waste to make sure that there is a gate system that allows that.
And
that
so
they're willing to do.
What was the plan? It's always been, that access from your application has always been proposed to be gated?
That has been always to be an emergency access, yeah.
And so what was the plan for solid waste before the discussion today?
That was always the plan for solid waste. It just never got taken through in developing a condition for it. And because the conditions came out today or last night, we didn't have a chance to react to it and make sure it got addressed appropriately.
And I haven't seen the record. What are solid waste comments on that?
We didn't have solid waste comments, but the transportation comment was to develop a cul-de-sac on the roadway, which obviously would greatly impact the site at this point. So we will have to figure out and make sure we could have a gating system that works for solid waste.
I see.
So it'd be like an apartment complex.
Understood. All right.
That was it, unless you had any.
No, you answered my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Horner, did you have anyone else that you wanted to speak?
No, I do not, Ms. Finch. I would just note that we received the transportation comments only yesterday and then realized a couple of things need to be addressed in post haste. We appreciate Mr. Ratliff and staff working through those issues today. Tonight, we want to make sure it's on the record that one fluid solid movement is going to be feasible and reasonable. We think Public Works and Solid Waste will accept that. This is not a gated community. It's just the emergency access. This is not going to be emergency access and solid waste gate for the egress back to Broad Street.
Yeah, I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to Development Services.
Mr. Monsanto Development Services. As the applicant stated, this is a major modification to a planned development to change from single-family detached units to single-family attached homes or townhomes and increase the number of units from 35 to 61 units. The site is 6.25 acres and is located on the northwest quadrant of North Glen Avenue and Broad Street in Tampa. The site has two residential future land use classifications, residential 6 and residential 20. Maximum residential density is being increased from 5.6 dwelling units per the acre to 9.7 dwelling units per the acre, but no plant flex is being requested with this modification. Unit counts are derived from the current Res 20 and Res 6 designated future land use classifications on the site. In the Res 20 area, 38 dwelling units could potentially be built, and in the Res 6, and the total residential units could be accommodated will be 63. The proposed 61 units are being distributed uniformly within the entire site. The project will maintain the two access points, as mentioned by the applicant, one full access to the west of North Glen Avenue and a second one for emergency access of Broad Street to the south. Transportation staff will speak to the latest proposal by the applicant on the solid waste access. Staff finds the proposed modification for townhomes compatible with surrounding areas. In general, the area today is mostly developed with single-family detached homes, and some attached units exist northwest and southwest of the subject site. The proposed attached units would serve as a transition from single-family detached to more dense apartment complexes permitted in the future land use of the Res 20 in the area. The project is in the urban service area and represents an infill development taking advantage of the density and utilities available in the area. Buffers are being increased from 15 feet to 20 along RZ 6 zone parcels on the north, in addition to solid screening. The applicant has also committed to a building design for the submitted site plan to ensure a residential design in harmony with homes in the immediate area. No objections were received from other reviewing agencies. Based on the considerations, staff finds the rezoning to put with conditions. Ms. Finch, there is the unupdated staff report, as Mr. Grady noted. All transportation comments are being incorporated in the staff report, as well as transportation conditions. And James Ratliff can speak to those proposed changes. I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ratliff, you had additional comments?
Thank you. Yes. For the record, James Ratliff, Development Services Transportation Review. As the applicant stated, the plan was submitted, with a label restricting that access to restricted fire/emergency access. It did not appear that they had anticipated the turnaround issue, and so I did raise that with them today. And subsequent to Mr. Yates and my conversation, I did have a chance to speak with the county engineer, and county staff cannot support their proposal. Essentially, in the existing approved configuration, as the zoning exists right now, that's a full access, and the zoning required substandard road improvements. And so, to eliminate or to reduce the scope of their required substandard road improvements, they wanted to make that a gated access, which is fine. However, they need to be able to accommodate that turnaround. And so essentially, it's really not appropriate for us to slow down and increase the cost of the collection of trash service in order to facilitate their reduction of substandard road improvements. If they want this to be an open access, it can be an open access, but then we need to consider those substandard road improvements. But we don't believe there is a way. We've never done it before. In fact, as I informed Mr. Yates earlier today, that the only other project I'm aware that this issue had come up, utilities did not agree to this type of a situation, and that development in question ended up having to put in a cul-de-sac. So I wrote the conditions such that, whatever kind of in-treatment they can negotiate with Hillsborough County, we typically only allow T turnarounds in a temporary type of condition. But again, if they want to seek a design exception for that in order to kind of minimize the footprint, that is something that could be considered, through that process. But at the end of the day, we cannot support converting that into a partial use type of access. So I'm not even sure how that would be controlled, because again, if it's a Knox box with a fire key, the utility department doesn't have that. And if it's a regular type of gate, then I don't know how you keep all traffic from using it. And in addition, if you're putting trash trucks on Broad Street, then we really need to look at substandard road improvements to potentially to that. So unfortunately, we would be able to support that request.
Let me just make sure we're clear for the record. So you talked to the county engineer, and the county engineer said we can't support the the waste management vehicles going through the secured emergency access.
Correct. Essentially, I just kind of outlined what I, with him, what I outlined with you, and said, just want to make sure that I'm, on the right page, and that, what our position on this would be. And he said, yes, that, we could not support that.
All right. And then if they did want to pursue either the cul-de-sac or the T for a turnaround area, would that be a design exception?
The cul-de-sac would just be something that they could build per the standards. Again, the T type of turnaround is something that we typically only allow as a temporary condition. However, there could be a design exception that they could pursue in order to permit that to be used outside of a temporary condition, if you will.
I understand. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, then we'll now turn to the Planning Commission.
Jawan Haley, Planning Commission. The subject property is designated Residential 6 and Residential 20 on the future land use map. The site is not within the limits of a community plan area and it's not within the limits of a community plan and is within the urban service area. The applicant is requesting a modification to an existing plan development to allow for the construction of 61 single-family attached dwelling units. The requested use is allowable and is consistent with the Residential 6 and Residential 20 future land use categories. The site is located within the urban service area as per policy 1.2 of the future land use element. These sites are to be developed at a minimum of 75% of the allowable density per the land use classification. The maximum number of units that can be considered for the site is 64 units. The applicant is meeting minimum density consistent with policy 1.2. The immediate area contains single-family detached residential uses. However, there are attached residential units in the area, specifically to the north at the intersection of Kirby Street and Hines Avenue, and further south along Hines Avenue. Additionally, this application complies with all buffering and screening requirements of the Land Development Code. Planning Commission staff has determined that the proposed project meets the intent of Objective 16, Policy 16.2, 16.3, 16.8, 16.10, and 16.11 that require compatibility of residential development to the surrounding areas. The modification also demonstrates adequate connectivity to adjacent neighborhoods and properties. Planning Commission staff has determined that the proposed development satisfies the intent of Policy 13-1.4 regarding connectivity in the community design component of the future land use element. Based upon these considerations, The Planning Commission finds the proposed modification consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to the conditions proposed by the Development Services Department. Thank you.
Much appreciate it. Is there anyone that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor of the application? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition? No one. County staff, anything else?
Nothing further.
All right, Mr. Horner, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Finch. I'll be brief. Michael Horner again for the record. I spoke with Mr. Ratliff today, as did Mr. Yates. I didn't realize he had a follow-up subsequent discussion with Public Works. However, we would like that flexibility so that we don't have to go through a PRS modification to come back if solid waste and waste management allows for that access. I would suggest to you again that this is a fluid movement. This is unencumbered. This is simply like every other waste management pickup opportunity. That gate is a remote control gate. It's on frequency. That's why 911 operators have that. All emergency vehicles have that. So if you're worried about holding up a garbage truck, it's not going to be held up any more than someone racing for a heart attack victim. We think solid waste will find that suitable. We would ask for that opportunity to meet with them so that we can present that to the board and allow that condition to be implemented. So that's all I have. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your time and testimony. We'll close major modification 20-0368 and go to the next case.
The next item is agenda item D4 is rezoning application PD 20-0603. The applicant is Tampa Port Authority. The request is rezoned from PD and AI Agriculture Industrial to a planned development. Michelle Heinrich with county staff and provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
All right. I believe the applicant is virtual.
And I believe the representatives here to submit in the record a PowerPoint presentation that the virtual applicants are going to
Both. Okay. So you're both in person and virtual. Good evening. You could start by giving us your name and address.
Sure. My name is Alexia Rotberg. I am a planner with Stantec. Oh, thank you. We are located at 777 South Harbor Island Boulevard, Tampa, Florida, Suite 600, zip code 33602.
Thank you.
And Madam Hair Master, I have not been sworn in. I don't know if that's necessary.
It is necessary. Okay. If there's anyone in the room or anyone online that plans to speak on this case or any case throughout the end of the agenda, if you could please stand and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Go ahead.
I can control the PowerPoint from here. Perfect. Okay. Good evening, Madam Hearing Master. My name is Alexia Rotberg with Stantec, again representing Port Tampa Bay on behalf of this rezoning application. We had a chance to look at staff's pretty detailed report and agree with it, and all the conditions included within it. However, we just wanted to provide brief background history on the property and associated applications being processed concurrently. The subject property is approximately 134 acres. It's located in unincorporated southern Hillsborough County at the intersection of Cracker Avenue and US Highway 41. The majority of the site was purchased by Port Tampa Bay in 2012. And you can tell by the aerial that it's a historic fish farm. The adjacent 18.65 parcel was purchased by Port Tampa Bay in 2018. It's outlined in orange on the attached image. That parcel is currently undergoing a future land use amendment, CPA 20-05, to change the future land use of that 18.65 parcel from suburban mixed use to heavy industrial to match the rest of the South Bay site. That adoption hearing is a little over a week away on August 27th. The existing zoning of the property, most of the property is actually already zoned planned development. The site was approved for planned development in 2007 via PD 070866. That property that portion of the site is entitled for up to 1.5 million square feet of industrial manufacturing use, 225,000 square feet of flex use building, and 50,000 square feet of retail commercial building. But it is important to note that in the past PD, it was required that the retail uses be integrated into the manufacturing and flex buildings. In total, this approved the site for up to 1,775,000 square feet of building. The adjacent 18.65 parcel is currently zoned agricultural industrial, and thus that's why we are rezoning to a PD to incorporate that new acreage. So our request for PD rezoning is necessitated by the inclusion of the newly acquired 18.65 parcel, but we are retaining most of the entitlements that are in the existing PD approval approved in 2007. We are keeping the 1,775,000 square feet of uses, but we are choosing to conglomerate the manufacturing use and the flex use building. And we are choosing to have the option to have the 50,000 square feet of retail commercial be standalone along US 41. In addition to these adjustments, let me go back. We are also shifting the internal private driveway that's shown on the previous PD slightly north to accommodate this newly acquired parcel. This creates a four-way intersection at US 41 and Diana Toledo Alameda Road. This greatly enhances project access, and condition of approval number 11C, I believe, requires that intersection to be signalized when warranted by the applicant. We are also allowing for the standalone retail, which I mentioned in the parcels along US 41, which are A, B, and C on the attached image. And we are also allowing for implementation of Port Tampa Bay's typical 8-foot high chain link fence in lieu of the masonry wall required via code. This is a 8-foot high chain link fence. It has 3 barbed wire lines across the top for security measures. And we're also, as you can tell, removing some of the building detail on the previous PD to allow Port Tampa Bay to have flexibility when pursuing future tenants in the area. It's unrealistic to expect the port to find a tenant for a specialized building as depicted on the former site plan. It's just not the way the port seeks tenants, and it's not conducive to implementing the port security protocols that are necessary for certain tenants. And last but not least, we are actually including a conditional cross-access requirement to the existing commercial intensive units, which are in between the PD there. That conditional cross-access basically says that if standalone retail uses or non-port related uses, or basically any use that does not require security measures, such as the 8-foot high typical fence, cross-access will be provided pursuant to code requirements. However, in any instance where a port tenant needs specialized security protocols, such as the 8-foot high chain link fence or restricted access, cross-access will not be provided. With that being said, we have read through staff's report. We agree wholly with staff's recommendation for approval, and we kindly request that the ZHM adopt staff's favorable recommendation. And we are available here and virtually for any questions.
All right, and that was my question. You have 2 other people that are, I think, virtual, but that's only for questions and not presentation.
Yes, I have my colleague Adam Carnegie, also a Stantec, as well as Jose De Jesus with Port Tampa Bay for more technical questions.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
I don't have any questions at this time, but thank you. If you could please sign in.
Sure.
Development Services.
Hi, good evening. This is Michelle Heinrich. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Again, for the record, Michelle Heinrich, Development Services. This is, as you heard, a rezoning of approximately 134 acres from AI and PD 070866 to a new PD. The entitlements, as you heard, are being proposed is approximately 1.7 million manufacturing industrial use square footage and 50,000 square feet of freestanding retail uses. The resulting intensity on this site will be a 0.3 FAR. As the applicant touched upon, the project is associated with a comp plan amendment to make the entire site under the HI future land use category. And that has been heard already for the first round by the Board of County Commissioners, and it was transmitted for approval. And just also to note for comparison purposes, the maximum FAR in the HI future land use category is 0.5. The proposed development will locate the retail uses along Highway 41 with the option of manufacturing uses to also be on those parcels. However, only manufacturing industrial uses are going to be permitted within the eastern portion. The proposed site layout will be comparable with manufacturing and commercial zoning district standards. However, as you heard the applicant state, they are requesting 2 PD variations, and both of those occur within the northeast corner of the site. We're adjacent to AI zoning, which contains a residential use. Per the code, what would be required against that property is a 6-foot-high masonry wall as part of the overall screening requirement. In lieu, the applicant is proposing an 8-foot chain link fence. And as you heard by the applicant, this alternative is proposed due to security reasons and will be in keeping with the rest of the site's perimeter fencing. Secondly, the applicant proposes to locate the screening treatment within a larger buffer area. As you may have seen on the site plan against that AI property, they do propose a 200-foot buffer, and that is where the screening will be located, as opposed to the trees being located within 10 feet of the property line. The area is comprised of residential and intensive commercial and industrial development. Residential development is found to the north of the site, and to address compatibility, the applicants have proposed a lower building height than allowed elsewhere in the PD, and buffering and screening along Cracker Road, which is not required by the code. No objections from reviewing agencies were received, and Planning Commission staff has found the project to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Therefore, staff recommends approval subject to conditions, and I'm available if you have any questions.
And that pertains to the second variation you described. I just want to make sure I understand what's required on the screening and what the applicant is proposing to do.
Sure. What is required for screening purposes is type C screening. And the type C screening includes plantings, trees, and a 6-foot-high masonry wall. As part of that screening treatment, rather than the 6-foot-high masonry wall, the applicants are proposing an 8-foot-high chain link fence, and a detail of that is available on the site plan. And in our land development code, a bit of a unique situation, only trees, when discussing this where screening is to be placed, are to be within 10 feet of the property line. As you may have noticed on their site plan, they do propose a 200-foot buffer area, and then to run the screening along the south portion of that. So the trees would not be within 10 feet of the property line.
Variations, that's a part of that variation request.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, does that complete your presentation, Ms. Heinrich?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much. Planning Commission.
Jawan Haley, Planning Commission. The subject property is designated heavy industrial on the future land use map. It is located within the limits of the Gibsonton and South Shore Community Plan and is located within the urban service area. Of course, as stated earlier, please note a comprehensive plan amendment is currently being processed, which is requesting to change the site from suburban mixed use 6 to heavy industrial. The rezoning is subject to the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners approval of comprehensive plan amendment 20-05. The Board of County Commissioners approved the amendment for transmittal at their June 18, 2020 public hearing. The Board of County Commissioners will consider the amendment for adoption at its scheduled August 27th hearing. The applicant requests to rezone the subject properties from agricultural, industrial, and planned development to allow for the incorporation of additional acreage, the option to have standalone commercial intensive retail uses on site, cross-access exemption due to protocols and regulations, driveway realignment, and height adjustments. The application requests the option to have standalone commercial intensive retail or manufacturing uses on parcels A, B, and C located along U.S. Highway 41. In industrial land use categories, up to 20% of the development may be considered for retail commercial uses per policy 26.6 in the future land use element, subject to commercial locational criteria. The site does not meet commercial locational criteria. A waiver has been submitted for review. According to the waiver, the subject site is located within Port Tampa Bay's Activity Center, and the proposed plan development is part of a larger economic development area. The waiver also states that Cracker Avenue and Diana Toledo Almeida Road serve as critical connections to port-related independent properties west of U.S. Highway 41. The waiver asserts that the proposed development is consistent with the intent of the comprehensive plan by providing commercial uses to serve the local needs of the surrounding community and not allowing for an proliferating strip commercial development. Staff has reviewed the waiver, and the proposed plan development is consistent with the intent of the heavy industrial future land use category, which is to allow for the placement of for the placement of uses with the potential to produce the most intense, objectionable, and accompanying effects. The commercial uses will be located along U.S. Highway 41, a 4-lane arterial roadway. In accordance with Comprehensive Plan Policy 26.6, the acreages for parcels A, B, and C cannot exceed a total of 26.8 acres. The applicant is currently proposing commercial retail uses on approximately 10 acres, 9.3% of the site, which is well below the 26.8 acres threshold. The proposed development fulfills the intent of Policy 1.4 and is compatible with the surrounding area. A gradual transition into the more intense light and heavy industrial uses on the subject property is provided through the use of screening and buffering per Policy 16.1 and 16.2 in the future land use element. Policy 16.3 requires development and redevelopment to be integrated with adjacent land uses through the creation of like or complementary uses. The proposed development is consistent with the predominantly industrial and mixed-use development pattern in the surrounding area. The Planning Commission recommends that the Hillsborough Board of County Commissioners approve the waiver to commercial locational criteria. The subject property is located within the limits of the Gibsonton Community Plan. Goal 4A of the community plan states that Gibsonton will enjoy appropriately scaled commercial development by enhancing the opportunities for small professional businesses and specialty neighborhood retail along Gibsonton Drive and U.S. Highway 41. The standalone commercial uses are proposed to be located along the highway and have the potential to create opportunities for professional small businesses and retail. Based upon these considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to the conditions proposed by the Development Services Department. Thank you.
Much. Is there anyone that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition? No one. Mr. Grady, anything else?
Nothing further.
All right. The applicant, do you have anything else before we close? All right. Thank you for that. Then we'll close rezoning 20-0603 and go to the last case.
The last item then is agenda item D5, rezoning application ZD 20-0606. The app is LDI Homes Florida LLC. The request is rezoned from RC6 to a planned development. Zero Monsanto will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant. I'll note that the revised report incorporating transportation comments were submitted in the record. You have both of those, and staff can speak to those if you have any questions.
All right. Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening. William Malloy, 325 South Boulevard, Tampa, Florida. This is a request to take about 28 acres, in the Palm River area from RSC6 to a planned development of 150 single-family detached units. The project is in the urban service area and set for public sewer and water. The future land use is R9, which could actually yield about 100 more units than we're asking for, and is well below the 75% density threshold the Planning Commission likes to see. The reality there is that between a large drainage easement that runs through the project, accounting for retention and accommodating the significant demands as to cross-access and connectivity, 150 was the number that we could physically fit on the project. And these are smaller lots, 40-foot minimum width or 4,400 square feet. With the 40-footers, we've agreed to what have become the design standards for smaller lots in Hillsborough County. which are above and beyond the LDC requirements. They're laid out in the staff report, and as well as some additional buffering and screening along the south and west of the project. Some of that buffering and screening is dependent on a rezoning effort, which was recently filed for adjacent parcels to the southwest. I believe there is one petition in the public record from surrounding property owners, and without discounting it in any way, I believe it speaks more to general concerns in the area than to the specifics of our project. And I did take one phone call to that effect as well. Having said that, we have a finding of compatibility and consistency from the Planning Commission, as well as a recommendation of approval from Development Services. One of the more nuanced aspects of this project was finalizing the transportation plan and improvements for the project. And to speak to that, I'm going to introduce Mr. Steve Henry, who's our traffic engineer. Unless you have any questions.
I don't right now, but thank you. If you could please sign in. Good evening.
Good evening. Steve Henry, Links and Associates, 5023 West Laurel, Tampa 33607. Just want to put up an aerial. This is actually one from the design exception, which is in the staff report. But this kind of orients you as far as the access for the project and the location of the project. You get 58th Street, 12th, and 56th. So we've got access currently proposed on 56th Street, which aligns with Commerce Court. We've got access to 12th, which aligns with Kirkland. And then we've got the access to 56th, that aligns with 56th Street Court. We are asking for a design exception. We've got it's determined that 58th Street is a substandard road. And so we're proposing a design exception. And this kind of gives you the limits of the improvements are essentially the limits of the property, which run from 12th Street down to the southern property limits for the property. This provides the section that we're proposing. What we're looking to do is keeping the 10-foot lanes that are currently there, providing a shoulder, 6-foot shoulder, restabilized shoulder, and then a ditch along with the sidewalk for that. A couple of things with that is that we are asking for the exception to the right-of-way width, which according to the TTM would be 96 feet. But however, this being in the urban service area, the actual width of the roadway would be based on a TS4, which would require us to provide 12 feet of right-of-way. We're actually providing 10 feet of right-of-way and then a 7-foot easement for the sidewalk. So a total of 17 feet as opposed to 12. In addition, we're proposing to keep the 10-foot lanes. Again, the current required would be 12-foot. But out there today, you've actually got speed bumps along 58th Street. So if you actually widen the lanes and add the paved shoulder, you'd increase the speed, which is in direct contradiction to what the purpose of the speed bumps are, which is to slow traffic down. So we feel that based on that and also looking at the volume on the road, it is consistent with the Florida Department criteria for this type of roadway to have 10-foot lanes. And that's all spelled out in the design exception.
Has that's been submitted?
That has been submitted. It has been deemed approvable by the county engineer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
William Malloy again. Just in case and for the record, I'm going to introduce our civil engineering team, Absolute Engineering.
Okay.
Just put your name on the record.
For the record, Heather Wirtz, Absolute Engineering, 1000 North Ashley Drive, Suite 925.
Thank you very much. You want to sign in, please? Mr. Malloy, does that complete your presentation? Yeah, I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you. Development Services.
Mr. Monsanto, Development Services. As stated, the applicant seeks to rezone 3 parcels from residential single-family conventional RZ-6 to a planned development. The site is approximately 28 acres in size and is located on the southeast corner of South 58th Street and 12th Street Avenue South in Tampa. The site is within the Greater Palm River Community Plan and it is in the Tampa service area. The site has a future land use classification of Res 9 and is vacant today. The rezoning would allow up to 150 single-family detached dwelling units. Lots will have a minimum size of 4,400 square feet with a minimum lot width of 40 feet. Front yard setbacks will be 20 feet, rear setbacks 15 feet, and side setbacks 5 feet. Design standards are being proposed for the residential units as stated by the applicant. The project's roads will be public and connect to surrounding roads. Pedestrian access only will be provided to 16th Street South, which is along the south of this proposed PD. Cross-access connectivity to the southwest of the project for future roadway expansion is being also contemplated. Since the proposed project is in the Tampa service area, the site will connect to the city's public water. Proposed development is compatible to the area's medium-high residential pattern. Adjacent zoning districts permit residential uses today. Zoning districts located to the east and north are currently developed with lots compatible to the development standards being proposed today, including RZ9 to the north, while all the residential areas have residential 9 future land use category. The project will provide a 6-foot-high fence along the south and west, despite not being required per code. Additional rear yard for the residential lots adjacent to agricultural single-family conventional zone parcels will be increased to 20 feet in order to reduce any impact from the proposed smaller lots. Comments in opposition from nearby residents were received by our department. Most concerns are related to the lack of utilities available in the area for current residents, absence of sidewalks and street lights, among other issues. This project will have to connect to water and sewer, which is served by the city, and sidewalks are required also to be constructed at the project's frontages. Subject site is one of the few remaining large agricultural parcels in the area surrounded by residential districts. The project will be an infill development within the urban service area, providing street connectivity to all surrounding roads. Location of access points at existing intersections will also allow the continuation of the road system in the vicinity. Proposed PD is consistent with the underlying future land use category, and the proposed number of lots is below the maximum density permitted. No objections were received from other agencies. Therefore, based on the considerations, staff recommends approval with conditions. Zoning Hearing Master, the staff report has been updated, and our page number 3 in the staff report includes a graphic, and it has 2 access points that would be provided to the southwest. Those are alternate access points, so the developer may choose which location. And also all the transportation comments and conditions have been updated in the staff report that you received. And I'm available if you have any questions.
Oh, I was just reading through. I saw those comments as you were doing your presentation. I don't have any questions at this time. Planning Commission.
Juwan Haley, Planning Commission. The subject property is designated Residential 9 on the future land use map. The property is located within the limits of the Greater Palm River Community Plan. It is located within the urban service area. The applicant requests to rezone the subject property from residential single-family conventional 6 to planned development, allowing for 150 single-family detached residential units. Policy 1.2 requires new development or redevelopment to occur at a density of at least 75% of the allowable density of the land use category unless the development meets the criteria of Policy 1.3 in the future land use element, which provides exceptions to minimum density requirements. The maximum allowable density is 255 dwelling units. The minimum allowable density is 191 dwelling units. According to the application, a large irregular drainage easement in favor of Hillsborough County precludes achieving the minimum density as a significant portion of the project must be directed towards compensating for the easement. Due to the site's unique circumstances, Planning Commission staff has determined the proposed project meets the intent of Policy 1.3. The proposed 150 units maximize the efficiency of the subject site and facilitates low and medium density residential development, which is allowed under the Residential 9 future land use category. The site plan submitted by the applicant indicates vehicular connections to the north, east, and west. providing access to nearby residential development. The applicant has also agreed to a condition of approval that would require a vehicular connection to the southwest and a pedestrian access on 16th Avenue. The request satisfies the intent of policy 16.3 and 16.7 concerning connectivity requirements. The rezoning is also consistent with the vision of the Greater Palm River Community Plan. The rezoning promotes and provides an opportunity for infill development that is compatible with the existing community patterns in the area. The plan development furthers the vision of the community plan by providing vehicular accesses and facilitating a grid pattern of interconnected streets. Based upon these considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for Unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to conditions proposed by the Development Services Department. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me call now for anyone in the building, anyone present at the hearing who would like to speak in support. Anyone in support? Seeing no one in the building, is anyone present in the building that would like to speak in opposition? All right. Now, virtually, I have one person signed up, Belinda Roberts.
Yes.
Been sworn?
Yes.
Right. And are you speaking in support or in opposition?
A concern, a very valid concern.
Okay, go ahead. Start by giving me your name and address, please.
Okay, my name is Belinda Carson Roberts. My residence address is 5613 Cookman Drive, Tampa, Florida, 33619. My home is located off of 12th Avenue and Kirkland Drive, and the major incoming street to my home is 58 off of Palm River Road. On behalf of the residents in my community, our concerns are flooding, traffic, and power surges. During the rainy season, it constantly floods and the water is backed up from Kirkland Drive into the cul-de-sac of Cookman Drive. And the residents that live in Cookman Drive have to park and walk 3 feet of water, 3 to 4 feet of water to get home. The development has lately, this development will cause increased traffic on 58th Street. In addition, traffic is currently increasing on Kirkland Drive with no regard to speed bumps, and people drive through the area already over 30 to 40 miles per hour. At times, we also endure power surges. And when the surges occur, our power is out for 30 to 45 minutes. So at this time, as you continue the process of the approval for this development, we're requesting to please consider the aforementioned concerns and take whatever actions deemed necessary to address our concerns. So once the project is approved, it would not cause further hindrances for the current residents of Palm River Village. Thank you.
Good question. Are you speaking for yourself or are you representing a homeowners association?
We don't have a homeowners association, but we have a group of us have gotten together, and I'm the spokesperson for the group.
Understood. All right. Is there anyone else that would like to speak either in favor or in opposition to this application? Either online or in the room. All right. Seeing no one, county staff, anything further?
I would just note regarding stormwater that, again, there are standards in the code that require them to ensure that existing conditions regarding stormwater flow and flooding issues are not made worse by the project, and they have to provide for appropriate stormwater retention. I would also note if in the code does, the technical manuals do require if there's issues or concerns in the area that more stringent stormwater standards can be required. I think the applicant will probably speak to some issues regarding the drainage in the area as part of the rebuttal, but I do want to put that on the record.
Absolutely. All right, thank you so much. Mr. Malloy, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
William Malloy again, 325 South Boulevard. If I could show this.
You can flip it the other way. Nope.
There we go. As to the flooding concerns, we understand that's historically been a problem with this property. So much so that there is actually a drainage easement in favor of Hillsborough County that runs north to south. It's rather vague exactly where it is and where it's legally drawn. That easement has a provision in it that legally allows it to be relocated. And Absolute Engineering undertook to do that and professionally redesign the drainage easement so that as much as it can be accounted for in today's standards, today's code, it is. And we are very hopeful that that alleviates any flooding concerns or problems that the property has previously caused. One other point, just for the record, we received transportation comments somewhat recently. I think the last report came through this evening or late this afternoon. And one thing that we have agreed to is cross access either here or here to these two parcels, which are adjacent. When this project started some time ago, it's obviously been delayed. We didn't contemplate any access there. These two parcels came in as part of a standard rezoning recently, I believe in June, the timing of which has raised some eyebrows for us. But with that zoning in play, we really don't have a means to say, no, we should not connect there. Right now it's vacant agricultural land. Pending the outcome of that rezoning, should it change, should the request change, should it be withdrawn, we'd like to put on the record that if we can procedurally, we'd reserve the right to readdress that cross-access point.
But now it's a condition of your approval?
It is a condition of our approval right now.
Okay.
And that's all.
All right, thank you for your testimony. With that, we'll close rezoning 20-0606 and adjourn the hearing. Thank you all for your time and testimony.